Cato, Stoic injustice. We've all felt it. That sharp, sickening sting of injustice. The promotion that went to the less qualified colleague. The lie spread about you that you can't seem to erase. The systemic unfairness that grinds you down, making you feel small and powerless. And what follows that sting is often something far more dangerous. A slow-acting poison that can curdle the soul. Bitterness. It's a heavy cloak we wrap ourselves in, a corrosive acid that dissolves our peace of mind long after the initial injury has passed. We replay the event, we nurse the grudge, we let the anger fester, believing that our resentment is a weapon aimed at those who wronged us. But in reality, we are the only ones drinking the poison. What if there was another way? What if you could build a fortress inside your own mind, a shield that could absorb the shock of injustice without letting the venom of bitterness seep through? This isn't a modern self-help fantasy. It's a 2,000-year-old strategy perfected by a man who faced more betrayal, corruption, and outright injustice than most of us could imagine. His name was Marcus Porcius Cato, known to history as Cato the Younger, and his secret weapon was something we can call the moral firewall. To understand the power of this concept, you have to understand the world Cato inhabited. The late Roman Republic was not a place for the faint of heart. It was a viper's nest of ambition, a chaotic arena where titanic figures like Julius Caesar, Pompey the Great, and Crassus vied for absolute power. Corruption was rampant, political norms were shattering, and the very foundations of the Republic were cracking under the strain. Into this maelstrom walked Cato, a man described by his contemporaries as the living embodiment of old Roman virtue. He was incorruptible, unyielding, and fiercely dedicated to the principles of the Republic. He saw himself not just as a politician, but as a physician to a dying state. And this made him an immovable obstacle to the most powerful men in the world. Consequently, injustice wasn't an occasional annoyance for Cato. It was the daily air he breathed. His political rival, Julius Caesar, a master of populist tactics and political theater, constantly worked to undermine him. On one occasion, when Cato was delivering a powerful speech in the Senate against Caesar's allies, Caesar arranged for a messenger to deliver a scandalous love letter to him right in the middle of the Senate floor. The intention was clear: to humiliate Cato, to break his concentration, to paint him as a hypocrite. The other senators erupted in outrage, demanding Cato read the letter aloud. Cato calmly handed the letter back to Caesar, revealing it was from Caesar's own half-sister, with whom Caesar was having an affair. He exposed the injustice without descending into a rage. He turned the trap back on his opponent, not with anger, but with unshakable composure. Another time, Cato ran for the highest office, the consulship. It was widely expected he would win, but his opponents, fearing his incorruptible nature, engaged in unprecedented levels of bribery to secure the election for a more pliable candidate. The Roman people, swayed by money and empty promises, rejected the one man who stood resolutely for their traditional values. He was robbed of the position he deserved in broad daylight. How does a person endure this? How do you face public humiliation, political sabotage, and the theft of your ambitions without becoming a twisted, resentful shell of a person? Most of us would be consumed by it. We would plot revenge. We would complain endlessly to our friends. We would allow the injustice to define our lives. But Cato did none of these things. He simply adjusted his expectations and continued his fight for the Republic with the same unwavering integrity. This is the moral firewall in action. It wasn't that he didn't feel the sting, it's that he had a system for processing it. The firewall is a mental construct, a set of principles that separates external events, the things that happen to you, from your internal response, the character you choose to be. It operates on a simple but profound Stoic truth. The world can throw anything at you, slander, betrayal, failure, loss, but it cannot touch your core character unless you allow it to. It cannot make you bitter, angry, or vengeful without your consent. The injustice is the incoming attack. Your bitterness is the fire starting on side of the wall. Cato understood that lashing out in anger or sinking into resentment would be handing his enemies a second victory. They might have won the election, they might have landed a political blow, but he would not allow them to conquer his inner citadel, his peace of mind. He maintained his personal sovereignty. He knew that the only true harm that could befall him was the corruption of his own character, and that was the one thing entirely within his control. This is the revolutionary promise of his philosophy. You can absorb injustice without being destroyed by it. You can acknowledge unfairness without letting it dictate your emotional state. This isn't about apathy or suppressing emotion. It's about a radical form of emotional and intellectual self-defense. It's about building a sanctuary within yourself that no external storm can breach. So, how did he do it? What are the blueprints for this internal fortress? That is the crucial question we will deconstruct next, exploring the specific Stoic mechanics that formed the unbreakable core of Cato's moral firewall.
Forging the fortress, the mechanics of the moral firewall. To understand how to build your own moral firewall, we must move beyond the story of Cato and into the architectural plans of his mind. This isn't some esoteric, mystical practice. It's a logical, robust system built on three foundational pillars of Stoic thought. Mastering these is the key to transforming injustice from a source of poison into a mere external event, stripped of its power to create bitterness. The first and most critical pillar is the concept that is the bedrock of all practical Stoicism, the dichotomy of control. This idea, most famously articulated by the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, is deceptively simple. It states that everything in life can be sorted into two categories: that which is within our complete control and that which is not. The list of things we don't control is vast. What other people think of us, whether they act with integrity, who wins an election, the economy, the weather, traffic, and ultimately, even our own health and lifespan. The list of things we control is dramatically shorter, but infinitely more powerful. Our thoughts, our judgments, our choices, our actions, and the integrity of our own character. The Stoic secret is to pour 100% of your energy and concern into the small circle of what you control, and to practice a form of serene acceptance towards everything in the vast outer circle. Bitterness is what happens when we try to exert control over things we cannot change. When a colleague betrays you, the bitterness comes from the futile desire to control their actions, to mentally force them to have been a better person. Cato applied this principle with surgical precision. When he was robbed of the consulship through bribery, he recognized the outcome of the election was in the outer circle. He could not control the corruption of his opponents or the choices of the voters. What was in his control? His response. He could have thrown a tantrum, accused everyone of treason, and retired from public life in a fit of pique. That would be a bitter, uncontrolled reaction. Instead, he chose a response from within his circle of control. He chose to continue serving the Republic in a lesser role. He chose to maintain his principles, and he chose to be an example of integrity in a sea of corruption. The injustice was an external event that he could not control. His virtuous response was an internal choice that he could. The firewall held. He didn't waste a single ounce of energy raging against a reality he couldn't change. He invested all of it into what he'd do next. The second pillar that reinforces the firewall is the Stoic definition of good and bad. For most of us, our list of goods includes things like wealth, health, a good reputation, and success. Our list of bads include poverty, sickness, and being disliked. The Stoics argue this is a fundamental error that leaves us perpetually vulnerable. For them, there is only one true good, virtue, and there is only one true bad, vice, or the corruption of our character. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, even life and death, are classified as indifference. This doesn't mean you don't care about them. You might to be healthier over sick or wealthier over poor, but they have no bearing on your moral worth or your capacity for happiness. Your happiness, your inner tranquility, comes exclusively from the quality of your character. This is a game-changing perspective. Think back to Caesar trying to humiliate Cato with the love letter. Caesar was attacking something Cato considered an indifferent, his public reputation. Caesar thought he was launching a torpedo, but from Cato's perspective, it was a pebble thrown against the wall of a fortress. Cato knew his reputation was external, subject to the whims and manipulations of others. His character, his integrity, was internal and untouchable. Since his sense of self-worth wasn't tied to what other senators thought of him, the attack had no power. The injustice couldn't find a crack to seep through because he had sealed them off by redefining what truly mattered. When someone slanders you, they are only harming your reputation and indifferent. They cannot harm your character unless you react with vice, with rage, with vengeful lies, with bitterness. By choosing a virtuous response, you protect the only thing that is truly good. The third and final pillar is the mastery of our own judgments, or what the Stoics called assent. The Stoics taught that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments those events. The injustice isn't the source of the pain. The source of the pain is our judgment that this is terrible, this is unbearable, my life is ruined because of this. The moral firewall acts as a checkpoint for these automatic judgments. An event happens. Let's say you're unfairly criticized by your boss. The raw data hits the firewall. The automatic, unexamined judgment is, this is a catastrophe. My boss hates me. My career is over. This judgment, if you give it your assent or agreement, is what creates the suffering and bitterness. But the firewall allows you a crucial pause. It allows you to inspect that judgment before letting it in. You can challenge it. Is this truly a catastrophe, or is it just an unpleasant event? My boss's opinion is external to me. What is within my control? I can examine if there's any truth in the criticism. I can continue to do my best work. I can maintain my professionalism. By assenting to this more rational, detached judgment, you prevent the bitterness from ever taking root. Cato was a master of this. He saw the world for what it was, a series of events, and he relentlessly policed his own mind to ensure he was responding to reality, not to a distorted, emotional story he was telling himself about reality.
These three pillars, the dichotomy of control, virtue as the sole good, and the mastery of assent, are the steel, concrete, and engineering that make the moral firewall possible. Now, let's bring this ancient blueprint into the 21st century and see how you can begin construction today. Block 3. The Firewall in Action, your blueprint for modern resilience. Knowing the theory behind Cato's moral firewall is one thing. Forging it in the fires of your own daily life is another. The principles are not just abstract philosophical ideas, they are practical tools for mental training. Building your firewall requires consistent practice, like strengthening a muscle. It begins with small, daily exercises that rewire your responses to the world. One of the most powerful Stoic practices for this is called the view from above. When you feel the sting of a personal injustice, a snide comment, a friend's betrayal, picture yourself floating up out of your body. Rise above the room, above your building, above your city.
until you can see the entire continent, then the whole planet as a tiny blue marble suspended in the vast, silent darkness of space. From this cosmic perspective, how significant is that insult? How much weight does that single act of unfairness truly carry in the grand scheme of things? This exercise isn't meant to invalidate your feelings, but to contextualize them. It robs the injustice of its perceived magnitude, shrinking it down to its actual size, making it far easier to process without bitterness. It detaches your ego from the event, allowing you to see it with the clarity and objectivity of a distant observer. Another crucial technique, which may seem counterintuitive, is aria, or the premeditation of evils. This involves actively imagining and preparing for potential injustices. Before a big meeting, you might take a moment to visualize a colleague unfairly criticizing your work. Before a family gathering, you might prepare for a relative's passive-aggressive comments. This isn't about being pessimistic. It's about emotional vaccination. By facing potential injustices in your mind beforehand, you strip them of their power to shock and overwhelm you. When the event actually happens, your mind thinks, "Ah, yes, I've prepared for this." You've already rehearsed a calm, rational response. The surprise factor is gone, and with it, the emotional hijacking that leads to bitterness. Cato, living in the chaos of Rome, would have practiced this daily. He didn't hope for a perfect day. He prepared for a day filled with ambitious, obstructive, and difficult people, so that when he inevitably met them, he was not disturbed. He had already decided how the virtuous version of himself would act. Now, let's apply the firewall directly to modern scenarios. Imagine your boss takes full credit for a project you spent months developing. The injustice is immense. The automatic response is rage, resentment, bitterness. But your firewall kicks in. First, the dichotomy of control. You cannot control your boss's lack of integrity. That is in their circle. Wasting energy fuming about it is useless. What's in your circle? Your own work ethic, your professionalism, your decision on how to handle it. Second, virtue as the sole good. Your boss has your credit, an external indifferent. But you have your skill, your knowledge, and your character, which remain untouched. They have stolen a shadow, but you retain the substance. Third, mastery of assent. You challenge the judgment, "My career is ruined," and replace it with, "This is an obstacle. I will document my contributions. I will continue to produce excellent work, and I will seek opportunities where my efforts are recognized." The injustice is still there, but the bitterness has been starved of the fuel it needs to burn. Or consider the relentless injustice of the online world. You post something you believe in, and you're met with a torrent of anonymous hate. The moral firewall is the perfect defense. Their words are entirely outside your control. Their opinions have zero bearing on your actual character. Only your reaction does. You can choose to assent to the judgment, "These people are right, I am terrible," and be consumed by bitterness and self-doubt. Or you can assent to the Stoic judgment, "This is just noise from people I do not know, whose own characters are revealed by their actions. I will focus on my own actions and my own principles." It's crucial to address a common misunderstanding here. Stoicism is not about becoming a robot devoid of feeling. You will still feel the initial sting of injustice. The anger, the hurt, those are natural human reactions. The firewall doesn't block the feeling. It blocks the feeling from metastasizing into a destructive, long-term state of bitterness. It's the difference between a flash of heat and a raging fire that burns down your entire house. You acknowledge the emotion, you let it pass over you, and then you choose your response based on reason and virtue, not on the raw reflexive impulse. Building your moral firewall is the ultimate act of personal sovereignty. It is the declaration that, while you may not control the events of the world, you are the absolute and undisputed ruler of your inner world. Injustice will always exist. People will act unfairly, systems will be flawed, and life will deliver undeserved blows. But whether those events create bitterness within you is, and always will be, your choice. Cato's secret is not about changing the world. It is about fortifying the self so that the world cannot break you. It is the path from resentment to resilience, from victimhood to inner freedom.